Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. My guest today is one of this audience's favorite guests, Ronit Corry. She is the Santa Barbara dog whisperer, and she's amazing at training dogs. And today we're going to be talking about rescue dogs because sometimes that's very challenging. Welcome, Ronit.
Thank you so much, Robin.
I bet you get a fair few clients from the fact that they've rescued dogs. Yeah?
Absolutely. That's pretty much the majority of the dogs I get.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about that. What what goes wrong? What do people need to know to stay out of trouble?
What goes wrong? So, one of the worst things that we do is give dogs too much affection, thinking that love will heal them. Now, they definitely need love, but dogs are designed to work for us, and then get the affection. And my mentor, Cesar Milan, he says, exercise first, and people often don't do enough exercise. A walk around the block is not enough for a young dog, not even for an old dog. They often need more than that. So exercise, discipline, as in some rules, some structure, like stay out of the kitchen, or you can only come on the couch when I invite you. No, you can't just jump onto my lap. You can't, there has to be some rules that dogs respect space. So if the human says, this is my space, back off, then you can call the dog in. Come on, come on. You can ask the dog to come to you, but they need a few rules. It's sort of hard to find rules, but we can find a few of them for the house. They exercise, discipline, then affection. And the walk has to be done in a certain way, which is it has to be what's called a structured walk, which means the dog is next to you, not ahead of you. If the dog is ahead of you pulling, and we see this all the time on the streets, I see it all the time. I see a dog going, they're panting and they've got big eyes and they're out in front. That's because they're having to lead and be responsible for the pack behind them, which could be one person, could be more. And so they're stressed and they take that responsibility very seriously. They take it seriously, unlike people these days who don't take things very seriously at all. That's their job, is to be the leader and to protect their pack. So if you can't let a dog be in front, they have to be right next to you. If they can see you out of their peripheral vision, then they remember you exist. Then they are a follower and you are the leader, which makes a world of difference to them. I mean, we don't care. We don't care if the dog's ahead of us, but they care because you want a balanced dog, and you're not going to get a balanced dog if the dog is pulling you. And it's not difficult to get the dog to follow you right next to you, if you know what to do. Shall I tell you what to do?
Yes, yes. And just before you do that,
Yes.
I want to say that having a dog haul somebody down the road isn't good for anybody. I mean, it's not good for the dog. It's not good for other people on the sidewalk. It's just not good. It's not attractive. I saw someone training her dog so beautifully the other day, and I couldn't stop at the time, but I really wanted to stop and say, I'm so pleased that you're training your dog to be a good citizen, because we all benefit from that. And probably the dog benefits the most. Okay, so tell us how we end up not having a dog be a sled dog going down the road, hauling us behind them.
Yes, and I agree with you. It's so lovely when you finally see somebody whose dog is walking on a loose leash next to them. And that's the objective. So, what you do, and I prefer collars around the neck that tighten a little, though I personally I don't love the slip collars because I find the dog goes, and I don't like that. So anything with that is at intervals. And so I use a plastic prong collar. That's my favorite. It doesn't hurt a dog that has a sore neck or and they're called, the ones I use are called Star Mark, STARMARK. I think they make a really big difference, but not every dog has to have that. Little dogs, if they're little, they can get away with a harness and they can get away with something around their neck if you're not pulling too much. And if you're pulling too much, then that's not a good tool because if the dog starts coughing, that's not a good tool for you. You need something better. A chain that slips, it's not my favorite either. It's not as effective as something that has little points, sits loosely, and they only feel it in the moment when you give them a correction and you're not pulling on it. You're not holding that. You're just giving them a momentary correction. Boom, boom. Correct, release, correct, release. Never hold. And a lot of people hold because they're used to restraining their dog. And what you don't want to do is restrain a dog because then they're going to pull against you. As soon as you restrain, they pull against you. So I like those little collars, star marks. And they don't look like a prong collar. Nobody gives you a hard time because it's a prong collar, but it's used in a gentle way. And I find it the best for the neck of any dog that has a sore, throat or esophagus. So what you want to do is give a tiny correction. As soon as you give a correction, the dog will look up at you and say, "What do you want?" And then they will stop. They will wait. And then you catch up to the dog, get yourself near the head, get your leg in line with the neck, and then start walking again. As soon as he goes ahead of you, you give a little correction. Most dogs are very sensitive to those corrections. They look up at you and they're like, "What?" Nobody's ever talked to me like that before. Nobody's ever communicated with me like that before. So when the mother puts the teeth over the neck, and that's why those collars are so effective, because it reminds them of the mother. The mother puts the teeth over the neck and they feel the teeth, they stop or they slow down. And so we're recreating that. And so you give a little correction and the dog slows down, you catch up. Now you have to change in your mind where your position is with this dog, because most people are used to being at the hindquarters or at the middle of the dog. Their leg is at the middle of the dog. It's not good. You need your leg to be at the neck. Their little head can be in front of you, but that's it. But they have to be able to see you. Then they remember you exist. Otherwise, they forget about you and they're just doing their own thing. And then they even there can be bad habits, like they're protecting you. So that means they bark at people coming towards you, or they bark at other dogs coming towards you because that's a threat. Now you want to relieve them of that pressure of they have to take care of you. Then they relax and you often get and they're like, "Okay, I didn't know you didn't want me to do that. And you never said it to me in a way I understood." And we see that a lot with dogs, like, "I just never knew."
What I'm hearing, and I know it's true for horses, is that the dog doesn't necessarily want to be in charge. That's a lot of stress, but they will take over if nobody else is doing the job. And without even meaning to communicate that, when we get in back and we allow them to forge forward and pull us around and all of that, we're saying to them, "I've abdicated. You get to run the show." And then all these things can happen. The least is they're pulling, the worst is they're barking and charging other dogs, other people. Not a pretty picture at all. They don't want that job, right?
Right. Most dogs are not designed to be leaders. And, a leader will challenge you, but there's so few like that. But a dog can challenge you and say, "I don't want you, I want to be the leader." But it's rare. It's really rare because I work with a lot of dogs. And most dogs within 15 minutes of using this technique will be like right by your side and a completely different dog. And my clients are, they're saying, "Oh my God, he's never walked like this. She's never looked like this. She's never looked so relaxed." Because you're taking away that responsibility that they take seriously. So yes.
With horses, when they are relieved of that thing that they've got to do because somebody's got to lead the herd. When they don't have to do that, they are so relieved. They drop their head and they lick and chew. It's automatic. You're just
Wow.
saying, oh, thank God. I
Yeah,
don't have to do this anymore. Somebody else is going to run the show. But nature has designed them that if nobody else is running the show, they've got to step in because somebody's got to do it. So,
you're right.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
don't want to be leaders, as you say. They don't want to have that. They don't want to have that responsibility. It's a lot. It's a lot for them.
So, Ronnie, one of the things that I think I see, in fact, I'm sure I see, is that when people don't have any knowledge of what a particular breed is bred to do, sometimes they can rescue a dog that isn't going to be appropriate for them. I remember this couple that I saw at the Camarillo shelter, and they brought a dog back. And everybody looked so sad. The dog looked sad, the people looked
Mm.
sad, but it looked like it was a little Norwich Terrier. And what they'd adopted was a handful because those little terriers are tigers. It's built into them. When I used to show dogs, these little old ladies that judged the show, they would have people put the two dogs that were highest in the class. They'd say, "Oh, let them do their terrier thing now." And these two dogs that the handlers would keep them so that they couldn't reach each other, but they go, "Arr!" And that was terrier fire. That was the thing you bred for, is this boldness that would allow a dog to go down a hole where they can't see what's in it, go after an animal that's bigger than they are. That's lovely if you really need an animal to do that. But if you need a dog that doesn't have that particular temperament, something that's more relaxed, more easygoing, maybe a feisty little terrier isn't going to be the right choice for you. Do you see that kind of problem occurring?
Yes, and terriers do tend to be more feisty than other dogs and more difficult in general. Um, I do. I see people getting the wrong dog all the time, and it's sad. And here's how you want to choose your dog. Let's talk about that right now. We can go back to other things after. You want to choose. I just I went to a party the other night, Friday night, Valentine's Day, and I have this friend who has a little teeny dog, and she's she's like a little teeny dog. He lets her go, and she's very she goes walking around and tasting everything off the floor, and he keeps calling her back. And somebody said, "Oh, what's she like?" And he says, "Well, she's just like me. She loves to party." And I'm looking at that dog thinking that dog is so nervous, and he has no clue that the dog is nervous. The little back is all hunched over because she's so tense. And he says, "Oh, she's just got the same personality as me." And then he picks her up and, "Oh, aren't you cute? Aren't you cute?" And everybody comes up and says, "Aren't you cute? Aren't you cute?" Oh, and she's just, I mean, I feel so sorry for the dog. He thinks she's so happy, and I think she's not. So when I get a moment with her, I use my hands to, and this is one of the things I want to talk about. Let's remember to talk about petting slowly. I use my hand and I do this little circular massage on the ribs. It comes from the Tellington touch that I modified it slightly. It's pretty much the same though. And um, the dog goes really calm. You see a completely different dog, but then he says, "Come on, come on." And then she gets all hyped up again. So he thinks she's just like her and she's adapted to his lifestyle, but she's an animal. He thinks she's a little human or a teddy bear or something. She's an animal. She has a primal nature. She's not like him at all. She doesn't want to go to parties all the time, and she doesn't want to be talked to in that. And he's very hyper. So he's never going to let her rest, really really calm down to be in that animal state of mind, which is what they want, and it's good for us too. It's not the easiest thing for us to be calm and balanced, but that's what they need. And we need it too. So they teach us to do that. So you were saying yes, and I have another client at the moment, and she's absolutely lovely, and she's 91, and she got herself a border collie, a
Oh,
puppy. border collie puppy. And the puppy is really pretty good, but the puppy is like goes nuts when it sees another dog. And it's pulled her over, and she knows it's the wrong dog. Anyway, we've been working with her because she really loves the dog. So now she takes it out with a walker, which makes a big difference. She ties the leash around the walker. The walker's a heavy old walker. The dog can't, really pull the walker over very easily. And if it did, it would be dragging this heavy object. But she feels a lot safer, and we've been working with this. But she knows that's the wrong dog for her. She's just used to border collies, so she got one. But okay, so what I was getting at before, you want to pick the same energy level. If you're low energy level and you're not like hiking all the time and running and adventuring, that's high energy level. You would want a high energy level dog or medium energy level dog. And then that dog can keep up with you and it's part of your lifestyle. And then if you're medium energy, you want a medium energy dog or a low energy dog, as long as it can keep up with you. But you don't want a high energy dog if you're low or medium energy. It makes problems.
So one of the things that we need to pay attention to as we get older is that we need a different kind of dog often. I used to have huge dogs. I mean, big, big dogs. And I loved it. That is not an option for me anymore. I'm too old and I'm too frail. And my dogs have gotten littler. And now I have quite a little dog. And talk about energy levels. I have to rest a lot because I have an autoimmune disease. She is so good at just quietly resting. We do a lot of resting. If I had a border collie, we'd both be going crazy.
Yes.
Because that energy level is sky high. It's what
Yes.
they're meant to do. They're made that way. But I'm very lucky that I got this little girl who she'll sleep as long as I do. And then
that's marvelous. So that's a match of energy, and that's delightful.
Yeah.
That you got the right dog makes all the difference.
Yeah. I'm really, really fortunate in that. And of course, I had to make adjustments. And you learn those things the hard way. I could no longer pick up a big dog when it wasn't as young and vital as it was once upon a time, needed to be put in the car to go to the vet. So the ramps and all this stuff, I mean, you just have to keep adapting. And the dogs got littler. I remember my son being so surprised at the size of my dog because I was notorious for having giant dogs. And it's just the way it is. He's got a giant dog now who's getting kind of frail. And life teaches us new lessons as we go along.
Yes. A dog you can pick up is very manageable compared to a dog you cannot pick up. And I want to just go back and say something. Not all dogs will instantly walk beautifully with you if you use the technique of corrections, which is a pull and release, and then the rest of the time the collar sitting loose. Sometimes it's harder. Some dogs' personalities, they are so committed to their anxiety or their fear that they can't release it right away. Then you hire somebody. Don't try to do it on your own if it's not working. I see people and they say to me, I say, how long have you been dealing with this? Like the dog barks constantly or pulls constantly, or, she's got her arm out of her socket like a few times. And they say, we've had her 5 years. And I said, she's been like this the whole time. Yes. And they don't hire somebody until like really a long time after. You need help. People need help.
Before the physical damage is done to the human being and the
Yes.
dog. What are some other stories, Ronit, that you've encountered with people rescuing dogs and running into trouble?
Well, I must say the worst ones are the puppies with the older people. That's the ones I could think of most right now. But getting a massive dog, and get people with massive dogs. And, and they have a baby or child, and it's just too difficult. So they love the breed, but that's, you're really asking for a lot to be able to control a massive dog. Some of these massive dogs, they have low energy, so it's a little easier. But for example, I had one lady, it was a couple, but they lived separately and they had a child. And the dog, and some dogs are like this, it didn't want somebody petting it. So as soon as that happened, it would go "Rah," and bite. And so it had a couple of bites or nips. It wasn't bad bites, but it's scary to have a giant dog that bites. I just had another one like that too, a cane corso. Those are the biggest, scariest dogs. But this one was, I don't know, it was more like one of those winter dogs from Switzerland. I forget what they're called.
Bernese
And
mountain dog or something.
yeah, it was a Bernese mountain dog. Thank you. Breeds are not my, I can't remember the names always. So they, somehow the husband or the ex took the dog, got a court order to have a muzzle on the dog. And so, because then she could never take the dog out without, even going down to pee or something in the backyard. She was supposed to have a muzzle. It was a big hassle for her. And, I helped them. But a lot of times, and this is my difficulty with humans, is that a lot of times people are very hyper and they have a hyper lifestyle and everything happens very quickly and we go from here to there. Well, a dog doesn't necessarily adapt to that very well. So I think part of the problem was and they both tried, but they're not going to change their personalities for the dog. Um, the dog was responding to them, and it makes a dog insecure if you're very hyper. Some dogs seem to have like I have a sense of myself, and I'm just a relaxed being, and you can't fluster me. You see that sometimes too, and you think, wow, good for you, dog. You're sticking with your guns of being relaxed. But usually the dog is like on edge because the humans are not relaxed. I mean, just think how we used to be compared to this modern age. We used to sit around and talk more and go out and garden, and it wasn't so rushy. We're so rushing around now. Yeah. So the cane corso, same thing. It does not like somebody touching it, does not like somebody petting it. And so it has bitten, and they were all really scared, especially the mother. There was a daughter whose dog it was living with her parents. And the father was okay with the dog because he played ball with it all the time and it trusted him. He could do anything. The mother saw her or heard that her one of the other daughters was bitten a couple times. So I asked, what's the situation? What was she doing when she got bitten? Because when I saw the dog, I could see it wasn't aggressive, though it did come up to me and put its head right where you would pet it. And then as soon as I put my hand down, it just give me a look. Like, you got to watch for those looks. The look was like, don't you dare, I'll bite you. And they said, that's it. That's exactly what you're here for, is to see it do that. Because what they saw was the tail go down and the posture changed. I just saw the eyes. The eyes looked at me like, how dare you? But it put its head right, right at my stomach. Just like, I want you to pet me. But it was not true.
Did they come to understand that that was a problem, that you can't pet this dog without getting
Yes.
an aggressive response?
Yes, you have to respect a dog like that. Some dogs are just like that, and they can be, very sweet dogs, but they just don't want a stranger touching them. So I was getting back to the sister. So what was the sister doing when she got bitten? And I said, was she saying, oh, good doggy, what a good boy you are? They said, yes. And they said, she's very tense and she's talking to the dog like that. Well, that's an energy that the dog bites. The dog is saying, we don't like that kind of energy around here. So the dog was correcting her the way dogs correct each other in a pack. Like if one dog is very hyper, a calmer dog will come up and bark at it or bite it and say like, hey, that's not acceptable around here. We all have to be, and this is what dogs want. They want everybody to be on the same energetic level. Like we're all resting right now. We're all eating right now. We're all exercising right now. They want everything to happen at the same time.
So it seems to me that we need to remember, in terms of dogs, they don't care what the words are. What they care about is the energy level. And I know how easy it is to try to reassure an animal that everything's okay when it's not okay with you. And what's coming across to the animal is it's not okay. And they're thinking, what's wrong? Or they're in a little bit of an alarm state because we sound alarmed. We don't sound like everything's fine. Everything's
Right.
good. Everything's cool. It's very different. The words aren't what matters, right? It's like,
Absolutely, absolutely right.
yeah, yeah.
It's the energy behind the words. So I say to somebody, if somebody says no to their dog, the dog will listen. Somebody says, no, 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 don't do that. No, that doesn't have an energy behind it. And it doesn't have a calm energy, and it doesn't have a confident energy. The dog wants a calm, confident leader. The dog will follow you if you're calm and confident. If you walk around confidently, the dog will just say, oh, my beloved leader. They love us when we're like that. And we tend not to be like that. We're distracted, we're answering the phone, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we're running around like chickens without heads a lot of the time because we're overwhelmed with our workload. So we're not calm, confident. Some people are, some people naturally are, but others of us have to learn to be like that because it's better for us and it's way better for the dog and our relationship with the dog.
Ronnie, talk a little bit, if you will, about dogs and children, because children's energy is a whole other picture from adults. I mean, they have so much more energy than we do. When I was in graduate school, somebody made her graduate project that young people, students, would follow these children who were preschool and imitate every movement those children made. And in 15 minutes, these young people were exhausted because kids just move and move and move and move and move until they don't anymore.
Right.
We don't do that as adults. We sit, we talk, we rest, we whatever, then we go do something else. But how about that with dogs and children? Because that's got to be challenging sometimes.
So you can teach a dog to feel relaxed with any stimulus. So when the child is going, running around making noise, you teach the dog that is when you relax. And I would use massage to do that and help the dog really become calm. And when you're massaging the dog very slowly, because a lot of people massage like this, you're hyping the dog up. So if you do it very slowly, you'll see a big difference. Immediately, the eyes start batting and they get kind of glazed. If you do it the right way, if you do it slowly, it's all about slowly. So you have to slow yourself down. That's the thing. In order to get the dog, you're calming your nervous system to help the dog calm their nervous system. Then once the kid is running around, making noise, screaming, picking things up and throwing them, while you're massaging the dog's getting a new pathway in the brain that says when this noise type of noise happens, when this sort of whatever it is, this situation happens, I can be relaxed. You're teaching him that. And he learns that he can be relaxed while the kids are playing. And that's the safest thing to do because you don't want a dog running after the kids like prey, right? Kids look like prey. Then the dog can like stop that. You're being too wild in our pack, like I was describing before. The dog will correct, and you don't want that. And you don't want the dog to be like freaked out, hiding under, something because it's such wild energy. You want to teach the dog it can be relaxed with the way you can teach a dog to be relaxed on the street. Not every dog goes, a car, but they can to begin with, especially puppies. So you teach them that doesn't mean anything by giving them a correction. Maybe we should talk about when you give corrections. So with the walk, you're giving correction when it pulls ahead of you, and you're using your calm, confident approach. It's not, you're not freaked out. You're not thinking, oh my God, this is never going to work and I'm going to try it anyway. And you have to just be calm and confident, just the way I find that all problems resolve themselves much more easily if I'm calm and think through things carefully rather than like jump, like, oh my God, react. Oh my God, something terrible is happening. Hold on, let's think about this. So you want to have that, hold on, let's think about this attitude of calmness and confidence. And then you correct. If it doesn't work, you correct a little bit harder because you have to match the intensity of the dog. So if the dog's at a low intensity and you give a little correction, and some dogs are very sensitive, you can give a tiny little correction and the dog goes, oh, all right. And if the dog's at a very high intensity, you might need to give, like your whisper will not work. You have to give a harder pull so that he pays attention because he's seen a dog and he's all worked up, and that's a higher intensity than I'm just going for a little walk. And then you always want to use the minimum amount. You never want to stay using the hardest. That's the whispering part, I think, the dog whispering part that you always want to go back to as little as possible. Because then the dog becomes more sensitive to the corrections as opposed to insensitive to the corrections, which is really bad. When people pull really, let the dogs really pull hard, they're insensitive to you, to your corrections, to anything. They're insensitive to the leash. They learn to be that.
It's basically nagging, and all of us tune out nagging when it's the same thing over and over and over again at the same intensity, doesn't
Yes.
get through, just gets tuned out. It
Yes.
doesn't even have any impact. So I remember a really good horse trainer saying, you got to do what it takes. He said, don't do any more than it takes, but do whatever it takes. And he was working with a big drafty horse. And what it took to get that horse's attention was quite a bit, but it was the same reaction you're talking about, Ronnie. The horse was like, oh, I didn't think you meant it, but I guess you do. And everything changed. It
Yes.
all changed. So this rather than, that's sometimes what's necessary.
Yes. And sometimes when I take a new dog who's very intense, I give him one big hard one. And so I'm saying, I'm serious. And whereas the people are going like this constantly and it's not working. So I go, hey, and they like, whoa, this person's serious. And then you can be more gentle because then they've suddenly paid attention to you. And other times that you want to give corrections are if the dog sees another dog, ears go up, gets alert. You don't want to wait for that to happen. You know it's going to happen. You correct as soon as the dog sees the other dog, boom, and you keep it. And then the ears will go back down. It'll forget. Ears will go back up. And you can use a noise like or hey. I like those two noises the best. Some people go, but whatever you've been using that hasn't been working, I would change it. No doesn't work too well because no often comes with frustration and anger. No, Charlie, stop it. No, that the dog will not take you seriously if you're not neutral. No would be better. But no is a word and it comes with too much emotion. Better to start with a noise that you can't even put an emotion in, or hey. Well, the hey, people can go, hey, but you don't want that. You want a low hey, neutral hey, I'm serious. Hey, you don't step on my toes. The way you would say to somebody, hey, don't step on my toes. And so you correct if the dog sees another dog, you correct if the dog sees a squirrel, and you're going to do it before the dog goes into its craziness. Because once it gets into the craziness, if it barks or spins, I mean, I see a lot of craziness, then it's harder to get the dog back down to a normal state, and it's going to take longer, and you're going to have to fight harder. But if you preempt, you're going to have a lot of success. So you want to correct whatever the dog is afraid of. The dogs are like, oh my God, a truck. You correct. You say, we're not afraid of that. Correct. And they'll look at you and they'll see that you're not afraid. You'll be the reference. They'll use you as a reference. And what else would you correct at? Dogs come, if you have to walk past another dog and your dog is a little worried about that, just give little corrections. I'm warning. This is a warning. Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay calm. And you're working with the brain. Every time you do that correction, you're getting right inside the brain of the dog, and you're saying, "Stay calm." And so, you're making a communication with the dog that has to make sense to him. So if you just rote pull, if people just like do it over and over and over and over, it doesn't make any sense, because you wouldn't talk to someone like that. You say, now I want you to relax. Now I really want you to relax. You have different tones and levels of communication. And let's see,
So
go
one
on.
of the things I think I'm hearing, Ronit, or maybe I'm just kind of putting it all together for my own understanding. I'm guessing that sometimes people who are dog owners kind of don't want to be authoritative with the dog. They just want to be friends. Let's just be friends. And everybody gets to do what they want. And it's all fun and all that. And that's not an option most of the time. If it is, you've been unbelievably lucky, because that kind of system doesn't work with a pack like dogs naturally relate to being in a pack. So
Right.
we need to be willing to be a leader. We need to let go of the idea that this is a little human being with fur, because they're not. They
Mm-mm.
have a different kind of programming.
Yes.
And those approaches aren't going to work. The nagging isn't going to work. The nice, nice, nice isn't going to work. The hysteria isn't going to work. It's got to be
Talking to the dog. Sometimes they say, "Oh, I explained it to him, but he doesn't listen."
I hear this with children all the time. And if you listen to Piaget, they don't reason until they're 7 years old. So these people who are explaining in detail to a 3-year-old, I mean, they might as well be talking out the window, because it's not even when, and they do this at starting at 2. Why? Why is simply a way of getting attention pulled back to the child. Why isn't really asking for an explanation in detail? It's just keeping the dialogue going so they can have the attention.
Right.
But that thing of explaining, oh my gosh, it's so inappropriate, so futile. And yeah, with dogs, oh my gosh, yeah. Why you shouldn't do that with, oh, anyway. So we have to become sort of dog psychologists. We can't just assume that we know how they think and how they feel and how they operate, unless we can put ourselves in their place, which isn't
Yes.
easy, just like they can't put themselves in our place.
Right.
It's a communication between two very different species.
Yes. So I had this difficult pit bull, and I would notice a difference when I was walking her. If I was present, because a dog is present, an animal is present because they're looking for dangers. They're not thinking about the future or thinking about the past like we do. We are so stuck in the future. What's going to happen when I get home? What are we going to have for dinner? And what am I going to put on tonight? And whatever. So, the dog, when I was present, and I would do it specifically for her, I do it for myself as well, like almost in a meditative state where I'm present to the trees around me, and let's see if I can sense what birds there are and what's happening in the neighborhood. I would just like sense the neighborhood around me. My dog would immediately be right next to me, right next to me. And then as soon as I went into my head thinking about things, she'd start going ahead of me. It was really clear that she respected me as a leader when I was aware of the environment in my own primal state. They are primal. Yeah. So that was what she taught me. She taught me stay like that, stay like that. Of course you can't do it all the time, but you can do it as much as possible.
Well, and it is one of the reasons we have animals, because they are right here, right now, and we aren't. It's hard. The more modern we become, the harder it is for us to be in the present. We are always in the future and the past. Those are concepts that don't work for animals. They're
No.
present right now, and they invite us into that place. Speaking of which, Ronit, we're out of time, but I am so grateful to you. I think I know you have so very much to offer any audience. And for this audience, persons of age, these are pretty important issues. We need to be careful. We need to be wise in what we're doing, because we don't have all the strength and all the whatever that we once did. We got to get a little smarter. So thank you, Ronit, again, always, for being such a valuable guest here on Sensationally Silver.
Oh, thank you so much, Robin. I very much appreciate you interviewing me and even just appreciating what I say. I
Oh,
like speaking to you because you actually get what I'm saying. It's
yeah.
lovely. Thank you.
I love it. I love this topic. It's it's so common these days to see animals that are ill behaved, and um, it's, as I said before, it's not good for anybody. So we want everybody to truly be happy. Animals,
Yes. Yes.
their human companions, whatever, and you help with that, Ronit. So
Thank
you.
you. I want to make one point as to what you said last. Being in the present makes it really quick for animals to change. So your dog might have been barking for its lifetime, but you can tell it in an instant, I don't want you to do that. And they change really quickly because they're not stuck like we are in the past and the future. We change slowly. So that's it. Thank you for letting me make that point.
Good point. Ronit, I know we're going to do this again because I just
Okay.
love visiting with you. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you, everybody who's part of this podcast. And we'll see you next time, okay? Bye. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.